You're welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Omo Forest Reserve is home to hundreds of trees and diverse wildlife like forest elephants, chimpanzees, pangolins, and monkeys. But this pristine wilderness is facing a serious crisis because of logging and cocoa farming. So stay tuned as Arise Environment correspondent Leila Johnson-Salami explores the complex web of factors that are pushing this fragile forest to the brink. It's a race against time and the future of this forest, its elephants and countless other species hang in the balance. It's a story of resilience and the urgent need for collective action to safeguard one of the largest remaining natural forests in southwest Nigeria.
Wood has always been a part of the story of human existence, a relationship that began with the need for shelter, as early humans leaned on wood to build durable homes. As time passed, wood has also been used for fuel, furniture, paper, weapons, and more. However, as human populations expanded, the rate at which wood is exploited today has become unsustainable. According to forest data website Global Forest Watch, the top 5 states in Nigeria responsible for 54% of all tree cover loss between 2001 and 2022 are Edo, Cross River, Ondo, Taraba, and Ogun. One place where this is happening in Ogun State is the Omo Forest Reserve. Logging activities have reached extreme levels, damaging the health of the forest and making life tough for wildlife that call this place home.
You can reflect on how the forest was 10 years ago and how it is at this present moment. We see that there's a big difference. If you go around the forest reserve now, you will see that there are some areas that are opened, gaps, which are basically caused by logging activities.
Nigeria's deforestation rates of 3.5% annually is one of the highest in the world. This alarming trend is contributing to increasing carbon emissions.
An untouched forest will stock carbon, but logging somehow, even if it's selective, leads to tree felling and therefore greenhouse gas emissions. Logging often creates conditions for other types of land uses that leads to stronger levels of greenhouse gas emissions in the forest, such as small-scale agriculture, energy access.
Deforestation refers to forests being converted for non-forest uses, such as agricultural practices. And forest degradation is when forests lose their capacity to provide to people and nature, both of which are evident in Omo. And this rapid loss of trees poses a significant threat, not only to the forest's health, but also to the overall welfare of the millions of individuals relying on it for water and survival. Dr. Joseph Onoja, the Director General of the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, emphasizes the urgency of the situation.
It is instructive to note that the Omo Forest Reserve is one of the very important watersheds of the Lagos Lagoon. And the integrity of that Omo Forest is very important for the ecological, the social, and the well-being of Lagos State as a whole. Because if Lagos State, being a coastal town, is being protected by Omo Forest Reserve, so it's important that whatever happens to Omo Forest Reserve catches the attention of people downstream. If the integrity of the Omo Forest Reserve is destroyed, it will have a reverberating effect on the Lagoon of Lagos.
A large portion of the Omo Forest Reserve falls within the state government's concessional logging zone, where permits are granted and logging is allowed. Mr. Timothy Olatunji, the Permanent Secretary of the Ogun State Ministry of Forestry, says that it is incorrect to say that the Omo Forest Reserve has been deforested.
When you are talking about deforestation, it involves the change in the land use plan of a gazetted forest land for that purpose. And that has not been done. We have not converted Omo Forest Reserve for another use. It's still a forest. The logging has been going on for long. But we have two areas there. We have the conservation area, which is 65,000 hectares. We also have the operational area, which is 71,906 hectares. Logging only takes place in the operational area, not in the conservation area. It's well managed and also well controlled to ensure that we don't have fraudulent practices and illegal logging taking place in Omo Forest Reserve.
Researcher Dr. Zach Michelia studied forest loss and degradation in the Omo Forest.
People are concerned about deforestation, but what I saw in Omo is more of degradation. Logging activities that should be selective, but is no longer selective. That should be done in a way to ensure that everything is in order, but it's not done that way. And if you look at it from the aerial view, you don't really notice that level of degradation until you actually get into the forest. Because the degradation has to do with removing these logs, these trees that have a large diameter, that has the capacity to sink carbon. But due to the degradation level, the capacity of that forest to sink carbon is reducing daily.
The timber trade in Nigeria, including Ogun State, provides employment opportunities, stimulates growth in related industries, and generates revenue through taxation and exports. However, sustainable practicing must be prioritized to ensure the long-term viability of the industry. And according to the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, concessional logging is not properly managed.
I don't believe that the concession is being followed the way it should. So whether the logging is an issue or not, it is a serious issue, both the illegal logging and the legal logging, because the legal logging kind of encroaches into the protected area. They need to know the staff who are involved in it, because some people go under the umbrella of the concessionaires to be carrying out illegal activities, to ensure that the revenue that is accruing to the state really gets to the state and not just being pilfered by a few individuals into their private pockets.
Unfortunately, illegal loggers often encroach on the forest at night, making it challenging for rangers to effectively address the problem.
And then
According to the state's Ministry of Forestry, there are 150 forest guards within the Omo Reserve. However, within the conservation area, the NCF says that there are just 20 to 30 forest guards, and arming the rangers is a complex process.
Arming them will require going through a lot of hurdles, because even the national park rangers have just been given the license to bear arms. So other rangers don't have that license yet. Forest areas are becoming areas of security concern as well, and that's where there needs to be a synergy between not just the park rangers but also the military formations and paramilitary, so that we'll be able to protect the space.
Another pressing issue within the Omo Forest Reserve is the clearing of trees, particularly for cocoa farming.
Illegal farming is also part of the major threats we are faced with in Omo here. People want to look for where they can start their agricultural activities, so they will open up that area. They will, clear the trees, burn it, prepare their agricultural, whatever they want to plant.
While there are laws that should protect the Omo Forest and its wildlife, the effectiveness and enforcement of these measures are questionable.
We still recently reviewed its forestry and wildlife laws. And these are laws that this was supposed to be signed into law by the administration before last, and they were supposed to review it to ensure that it is signed into law to make it very current. But as it is, that it has not been concluded yet. If it can, 50% of that can be implemented, it will go a long way to be able to protect the Omo Forest Reserve.
In the face of widespread logging activities, the Ogun State Ministry of Forestry claims that part of the agreement in place with corporate loggers is that you must replant trees.
Between 2008, the Omo Wood has planted 3,100 hectares. Between 2004 and 2019, the ministry has been able to plant trees covering 4,578 hectares, 0.3 hectares. In 2023, in Omo Forest Reserve alone, we planted over 354,000 trees there. So when you sum up the total of all this we have said, you can see we are close to 1 million alone in Omo Forest Reserve.
However, Dr. Mashilia says even reforestation is not properly managed.
The unfortunate thing we see here is that the old trees in the constitutional zone are cut off, the young ones are cut off, and the replacement is not taking place. Also over a tree, if you cut down one, you should be able to replant like maybe 5 because it's a function of how many is going to survive. So, but that is not really happening because there is no proper enforcement. One of the danger we are heading in Omo is that we are going to a position where we are going to lose almost the indigenous trees, and we cannot be able to even get fruits from those trees that we can be able to talk about reforestation.
Reforestation is vital for restoring forest ecosystems, mitigating climate change, preventing soil erosion, and providing crucial habitats for diverse plant and animal species. The removal of trees and destruction of forests disrupt habitats, impede wildlife movement, and increase human-wildlife conflict. Endangered species like elephants are particularly at risk from habitat destruction during logging activities.
Elephants is the logo of First Bank. Elephant is the logo of the Nigerian police. Elephant is the logo of Lafarge. So I'm calling them out so they will know that their logo is going into extinction, and they need to do something. They need to step up to be able to protect their logo.
The Omo Forest Reserve and the wildlife that lived there could be wiped out if nothing changes in the near future. It appears crucial to implement proper management practices, including sustainable harvesting limits, the protection of conservation areas, and active community involvement in order to mitigate the risks. Layla Johnson Salami, Arise News.
And joining us on the show this morning to discuss this is Adedayo Memudu, Acting Director, Technical Programs, Nigerian Conservation Foundation. Good morning, Mr. Adedayo.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Good to have you. Good to have you in the studio.
I'm glad to be here this morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Laila.
All right. No, this is OG. Layla prepared the report.
You thought I was Layla?
Yeah, sorry for the mix-up.
Okay. But that's fine. I mean, they share things in common. They're both of Arise.
That's interesting.
But it was a brilliant presentation as usual by Layla, and I'm sure that you followed it. What are the issues? You were once in Omo Forest, I believe, before you moved. You've moved around quite a bit. The issues have been tabled, laid out clearly. But then, as an insider and somebody whose forte is, things like this. How bad are the challenges that have been laid out for us, and what can we do? What can the government do to ensure that things do not degenerate beyond what Layla has presented to us?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here this morning to share my thoughts on the present status of Omo Forest Reserve, Jebu East area, local government area of Ogun State. Presently, the challenges are enormous, and the they continue to, just last week we had reports of fresh encroachment into strict core conservation area. What is happening in Oma needs to be tackled because the biological resources of Oma Forest Reserve is not being properly projected the way it is. We do not know the enormous potentials and the values of the biological resources of Oma Forest Reserve. We are glad that we still have some of the charismatic keystone species of global conservation concern inhabiting Oma Forest Reserve, notably the African forest elephant, which is currently listed according to the IUCN Red List of Classification of Threatened Species in 2021 as critically endangered.
Yeah.
We equally have the Nigerian Cameroon chimpanzee, which is equally critically endangered. And Oma Forest Reserve is an important bird area, key biodiversity area that can earn us enormous foreign exchange harness if properly developed into ecotourism destination of note. It has the potential to compete favorably to other top destinations across Africa. But coming back home, you know, the way historically Oma Forest Reserve was gazetted in 1925,
Okay.
according to the Forest Ordinance of 1916.
Yeah.
There was a previous Forest Ordinance in 1908 which granted the rights to local people
Yeah.
of minimum exploitation of the resources there, particularly fishing, then minimum collection of non-timber forest products. But over the years, particularly between 1970s and 80s, the government then focused on the need to have 1/3 of the entire Oma Forest Reserve land area ceded to monoculture plantations to raise melina and teak, which were specifically targeted to supply paper to furnish the Ethiopian paper mills, which never came to fruition. So we are talking of 1/3 of the entire land area in Oma Forest Reserve dedicated to monoculture plantations, which the Ministry of Forestry in Ogun State is managing for timber extraction.
Okay.
Now, the other areas, there are two critical areas of note within Oma Forest Reserve. You have the elephant conservation area, which NCF, with its partners, we are trying to conserve for posterity, and for which we have approached the Ogun State government to declare it as Oma Wildlife Sanctuary to ensure its perpetuity because of the biological significance of the resources that are there.
Okay.
Also, we have the...
When did you put that in? Request to the Ogun State?
Discussions have been on for a few years ago.
Okay.
And we intend to stay engaged the current government again. We have been doing that because we are a technical partner to the Ministry of Forestry in Ogun State.
All right.
The other portion that is critical was established as a strict nature reserve in 1946. And during the visit of the late Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth, when he visited Nigeria in 1956, the area was renamed Queen's Plot, which is meant to be an inviolate plot, no form of exploitation. It's meant to be a control to the other areas that are being exploited. And in 1977, UNESCO recognized that site as a heritage site. And since then, man and biosphere activities have continued. So the level of threats confronting Oma wildlife conservation areas today are enormous. One of which is logging. Even the construction areas, people, you have little less nowadays. They go to the natural forest left to exploit and to harvest these trees. Also, you have the expanding agriculture. That is when we now talk about the menace.
My next question. It's just a shame that, Oma Forest is a tropical rainforest, and for us to see that, this logging activity going on there, is destroying the forest. And Leila had mentioned cocoa farming, which I would like for you to expand on. The dangers of cocoa farming and why these cocoa farmers are not adhering to possible policies that have been put in place to avoid this type of destruction.
Thank you. I mentioned logging as the critical threat. Next to that is the expanding agriculture. People going into the natural forest to clear it up, to plant and nurture their cocoa plantations. What this does specifically is that you lose natural forest to pave way for your cocoa plantations. So when you now have cocoa plantations replacing natural forests, then you are bound to lose the associated biodiversity they contain. And don't forget, when we talk about the potentials of Oma Forest Reserve, it's still yet underdeveloped. It's still yet underutilized because of the carbon trading benefits. We spoke about the need to keep the vegetations intact, the associated wildlife like forest elephant, Nigerian Cameroon chimpanzee, white-throated monkeys, and whatever. But the future of forest protection efforts in terms of mitigating and adapting or building resilience to the impact of climate change lies in carbon trading opportunities, which can fetch not only Ogun State government enormous resources, but the country equally will stand to benefit there.
That's understood, but part of what Oji was asking, which is also my concern, is how can farming, particularly cocoa farming, be a threat to all these things that you have listed?
Yeah, I mentioned that cocoa farming, particularly in plantations like that, replaces the natural forests. And when you lose your natural forest, don't forget, two key crises that we face nowadays as humans. One is loss of biodiversity and the climate crisis. And what leads to loss of biodiversity? One is loss of natural forest, natural habitat. When these are replaced by cocoa plantation, definitely we suffer for that. And that is why allowing people into critical core conservation area should not continue.
How are people, particularly in Oma Forest, adhering to the, I believe the standard is that for every tree that is down, that you fall, 5 must be planted instead. How is that being adhered to?
Well, let me first of all address the issue of encroachment by people into the place. I spoke about the previous forest ordinances, 1908, 1916, allowing the rights of people to certain degrees, controlled form. In any conservation area, you have zonation. You have core conservation area where nothing is expected to happen by form of degradation, deforestation, or illegal exploitation. You have buffer zones where some form of controlled activities are allowed to accommodate the local people that had been there before the place was gazetted for public good. And now you have the free area where, even though they are going to be regulated, but some forms of activities are allowed there to enhance their livelihood and to continue. So during this, we have enclaves recognized legally under the law. And they have some areas cut out for them. But you agree with me that with our population expansion, the explosion of population nowadays, people that were inhabiting that place maybe before 1,000, you now find as many as more than 10,000 now. They exert more pressure. They move their boundaries beyond where they were legally allowed to, and now they go into the natural forest. When you go to the natural forest area, they know it's fertile. They do not need to add fertilizer, whatever. They have bumper yields and some other things there. So that is what encourages them to go in there. It's largely unregulated. And the human populations around Oma Forest Reserve now is around 30 to 50,000 people, mostly immigrants mostly migrants from neighboring states, Edo, Osun, Kwara, Oyo. They are not mostly the indigenes of Ijebu East local government area of Ogun State. People have moved in there massively. All the way from Benue, they are there.
What's the attraction?
The attraction is that they have a fertile land to plant their cocoa and reap benefits there. And wherever you have cocoa plantations, they replace the natural forest there. And when you lose natural forest, you lose the charismatic keystone species there. We lose the ecological services, and we lose the potentials in future to tap into the opportunities presented by carbon trading.
Right. But when you talk about fertile land, there's also the issue of water pollution there as well, I believe. I mean, we're talking about things like pesticides that are used in the cocoa farming. How dangerous is that? And what is the result of those water pollution in that forest?
Thank you. You agree with the fact that it's difficult to source for farm labor now. Maybe post-planting operations and pre-planting and post-planting operations. Many of them now run to pesticide chemicals for maintenance and all this. You know, this a rainforest environment, high precipitation, runoff, they go into our water bodies. And don't forget, as a critical water set, feeding Lagos Lagoon, Olokola, Free Zone, many of these pesticide residues end up in our water bodies, and then you now have eutrophication, pollution of the environment, and loss of aquatic biodiversity. And now, in terms of the quality of water we get to drink there is impacted upon. And now you now have more challenges coming there from such pollution of the native water bodies and the soils there within the Omo Forest Reserve.
All right, Mr. Memudu, we want to thank you so much for joining us on the morning show and for enlightening us on this very important topic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.